Hello and welcome to the second video in my series, Learning Chinese Starting from Zero. In this video, I want to look a little more in depth at characters and the impact that Chinese being a character-based language has on the grammar. Now, if you're thinking, why do I care how characters influence the grammar? Well, I think you'll see after this video that because Chinese is a character-based language, it influenced the kind of grammar that's actually even possible. And I think once you understand how the grammar is constructed, it'll make it a lot easier as you go through and learn words and phrases and the actual grammar itself. So, without further ado, I'm going to talk about the beauty of characters. You're thinking, oh, why beauty of characters? The pictures? No, I'm going to talk about the properties of Chinese characters. For example, unlike in Spanish or French or other languages, you cannot conjugate a character. Okay? You can't have a tense with a character. You can't have plurals with a character. You can have gender, but they don't in Chinese. And even things like possessives, like his or hers and things like that, are actually a lot easier in Chinese. So if you think, if you don't have conjugations and you don't have tenses really, you don't have plurals and you don't have gender and you don't have possessions, that's a whole stack of the normal grammar that you would have to learn in a language. Now, of course, your question is, why? Well, look at it this way. On the left, I've put the English very simple phrase, I go, and he goes. So notice in English, we change the form of the verb based on the subject of the sentence. Okay? On the right-hand side, I have the Chinese characters that mean the same thing. This first character here means I. The second character is go. This character here is he. This character here is go. If you notice, it's exactly the same character, whether I say I go or he go. Okay? The reason that's the case is the characters don't change. The picture is the same. It doesn't matter what you pair it with, it's always going to be the same picture. If it's always going to be the same picture or the same character, you can't conjugate it. And that's where the nature of Chinese grammar becomes clear. So, let's look at past tense. So in English we would say I go, and in Chinese I go. In English, we say I went for past tense. In Chinese, you can't make go into went. It's impossible. It's the same character. Now, in Chinese, what they will do for a completed action is they can sometimes add an extra little character. And ultimately, you'll see that if there is any grammar, it's the addition of a small extra character in every case that's similar. So for Chinese, what they call as a completed action, they add a le at the end. But the essential structure of the sentence is the same whether it's I go or I went. It's the same. So there's no tenses to learn. Give you another example on plurals. So in English we say one computer. In Chinese we say in English we say three computers. So in Chinese, one unit, and this is the two characters for computer. If it's three unit, same unit, characters for computer. So the only difference between one computer and three computers in Chinese is the unit one or three. So you don't have to worry about plurals, like is there an S or is there an ES or how do you change the character? None of that's necessary. You just have to know the number and the rest automatically follows. Now, quick question time break. How did they do that? If Chinese is such an old language, you might be thinking, how does it have characters for the concept of computer? And it's actually a pretty good question if you think about it, because Chinese is an ancient language, thousands of years old. There obviously were not computers around when they first invented Chinese. Well, Chinese is actually pretty creative in how it creates new words. So I'm going to give you a little example. The character for electric, now if you're thinking, wait a minute, they didn't have electric 2,000 years ago either, you're correct. The first top part of this character actually is rain, roughly a picture for rain. And the bottom part is basically thunder, lightning base for a character. So rain and thunder and lightning, if you think about it, put those together and you can get electric. Okay? But here's what they do in Chinese, which is kind of cute. So the word for computer is actually electric brain. Okay? The word for elevator is actually electric stairs. And the word for telephone is electric speech. So it's kind of cool. Once you learn, for example, a word like electric here, once you learn that, the characters you pair it with can give you a whole bunch of new vocabulary quite quickly. So if you remember, I said learning words in Chinese is difficult because you have to learn them all from scratch. There's none similar like in, say, Spanish or French. However, on the plus side, you get a lot of words where you can start building combinations of characters and you can get words and you can start to guess. So if you know that this is speech and you know that's electric, you can sort of guess electric speech, what could that be? And then you learn telephone. So it is possible to build up vocabulary in that way. Okay. Now, I just want to go back really quickly to when I was talking about computers. I said there were three, and I said units of computers. The reason I want to go back to this is because in the last video I talked a lot about context and the importance of Chinese in context, because there's a limited number of sounds and a lot of characters, so a lot of things will sound the same. So what Chinese does is it puts for almost every item a specific unit. In this case, this is a unit for computers. And you kind of have to learn. It's a little bit like in English. We would go, 4 loaves of bread. So loaves is like a measure of unit, or 2 strips of bacon, or 1 slice of toast. In Chinese, just about every object has a specific unit that goes with it. Now, a lot of them are used for, the same unit can be used for many different things, but it's one of the things you have to add. And you can think about the reason it works is because if I just said 3 computer, it's not as clear as 3 units, and this being having a specific meaning, of computers. And it adds context and therefore makes it more understandable, even if these characters might have similar sounds to something else in the sentence. Now, if you're thinking, oh my God, how am I going to do this? The beauty is, for beginners, there's a really simple one. They have one all-purpose unit, G. So you just say, I want 1 G of this, and that's the default. So if you don't know what to use, you just use this one. And then over time, as you learn more and more, you'll learn the specifics. Okay, so there is an easy way to help you out at the beginning. Now, you get a little into tenses. Now, as I said before, in a lot of Western languages, if you've studied French or German or Spanish, the tenses can be quite a lot of work in conjugating all the verbs. So in English, we would have, for example, a couple of tenses: present, past, future, present perfect. So I go to the store, I went to the store, I will go to the store, I have been to the store. Okay. Now, Chinese kind of has the same idea, but they do it in a far more simpler way. So here's an example. So in Chinese, what they do, let's take a look at this one. I go store. Okay, you don't have to say to the store. So it's almost like when you're first learning Chinese, it's almost a good idea to start thinking in pidgin English. So yesterday, or today, in this case, today, I go store. Okay. Past tense is very simple. Again, you can't change the character. So it's yesterday, I go store. And there's your past tense. So all you had to do to change from present tense to past tense is you change the time element. So instead of today, I change it to yesterday. And as soon as I change that, it changes the tense. Or for this one, tomorrow, the characters for tomorrow, now there's another little character they throw in for future, go store. So to make future, I add tomorrow and I add this extra character. I don't have to actually change it. And this character gets used for anything that's future. If you want to do present perfect, I already go store. Okay, so again, it's not I have been to the store. It's I go store, but already. So I already go store. And then I'll throw one more in. In English, we have present continuous tense. So I am reading right now. I am walking right now. In Chinese, I go, for going to the store, and then you add the character 在. So I, 在, means I am in the process of going to the store. As soon as you put that, there's your present continuous. In every case, it doesn't matter. He, she, whatever verb you're doing, anything. You throw that in, you're done. That's it. So if you compare, basically, there's 5 tenses learned. That's it. So in basic terms, the grammar is actually quite simple. And the reason it is because you can't change the nature of the characters. And because you can't change the nature of the characters, they found a way to make it a lot easier. Okay, so the way I look at Chinese, when I was at the beginning trying to put together sentences, I tried to look at it like building blocks. And each character is kind of like a block, and you're trying to make a row of blocks to make a sentence. Okay? Because the characters don't change with the time or the situation, the blocks don't change. So once you learn a certain number of blocks, you can start putting these blocks together and making sentences and not have to worry about, oh, he go, no, I go, he goes kind of problem, because it's just the same block. Also, as a result, Chinese grammar tends to be quite flexible. Now, I'm exaggerating a little bit on these ones. This one, for example, is probably not technically correct, but the idea in Chinese is you can move around things. So you can say, yesterday I with my friend go store. You can also say, I yesterday with my friend go store. You can say, I yesterday go store with my friend, kind of. Or, yesterday I with my friend together go store. Those are all pretty much possible combinations. And again, if you think about building blocks, it's just moving the blocks around. Probably the most important thing to realize, though, is if you think about how we did the tenses and the building blocks, one of the things you'll notice is that the time is almost always at the very beginning of the sentence or almost at the beginning of the sentence. And if you think about it, the reason is quite clear, because you can't tell the tense from the verb. In English, you can, you say, I went to the store yesterday. You can put the yesterday at the end of the sentence because went already tells you past tense. In Chinese, the verb is not going to tell you past tense. As a result, you put the time at the beginning, and that tells you the tense. Now, I'm going to have one little more, one other small example on building blocks, and that'll be it for this video. So here's the character for I, and here's the character for us, or we. Okay? This character makes the I the plural. So this is he, and that makes it them. So you learn I, and that gives you we, that's he, with that gives you them, and we can do the same for you single and you plural. Okay, so think again as building blocks. Here's the beauty. Remember I said, in English we have possessive, so that's his book, or that's hers, or things like that. In Chinese, you don't have to do it. You learn one building block, this little block, de. You add that to an I, and that becomes mine. You take we, or us, you add it to the de to the end, that becomes ours. His is that plus de, it's his. That plus that is theirs. Now you know all the possessives in Chinese, once you learn how to pronounce them. So what I'm trying to show is this building block concept is quite powerful if you think about how sentences are constructed. You have to learn a few of the basic building blocks, and once you get those building blocks and realize that you just have to put them in the right order to provide the context, the grammar is actually straightforward. So to review, Chinese is a language made up of characters. And because of that, it changes the way that the grammar of the language is constructed. Okay? We don't have to worry about tenses and conjugations or possessives and things like that because the nature of the character can't change. So Chinese has alternate ways of doing the same thing, but they tend to be a lot simpler, at least when you're talking. So again, the way I look at it is trying to build sentences using building blocks. And if you think building blocks and a little bit like Pidgin English, I think you're well on your way to starting to make half-decent Chinese sentences.